Welcome back to preview session 3 for the PCM Daily Management Game 2024. After having had the Conti Tour and the Pro Conti Tour, this time we'll continue with the Kings or Queens discipline, the Pro Tour. This is Croatia 14, former manager. Looking at the teams, we'll go through the teams in alphabetical order, one by one, and rank them into one of the 6 categories. This time named after pure man game legends, starting with Sam Booley, the ultimate goat of classics riding. Of course, also capable sprinter. Then we have, it's obviously the column for the big ones, the favorites to win it all. Then we have Edvald Boasson Hagen, one of the best punchers to have ever been there. So that is solid top 5 territory when we look at those teams. Then we have the Marco Kump sector, which is one, well, not the best of the best, not the creme de la creme of all, but I mean can still become world champions. So we're talking about teams with upside to go maybe all the way, probably not all the way, but could go somewhere high up. Then we have the Martin Kaiser territory of being very solid enough to shouldn't be in the real struggle against relegation, but also shouldn't be good enough to become a top 3 team. Then we have the Jose Alarcon territory, which is one where you should have the skill set to survive, but it's not necessarily given. So teams that do have some upside but may be in danger go in there. And then we finally have the Theo Boss column, which obviously is the one where there is something there, but you may be screwed. So yeah, that's what we will look to sort the teams into. And we're going to start the Pro Tour with Akero MOG. This team started off very well last year, obviously, had some transition, have Attila Walter as the main guy now. He's a good signing, and you see the team had quite some turnaround. All the 3 top riders are new riders. They're all very good. Attila Walter has, in my opinion, one of the most intriguing skill set, has all the punch that you want with your captain. He does not necessarily have the highest main stat yet. I think this will surely change in the future, but I think Attila Walter is a very good guy. The team also has Domen Novak and Barnabas Perk, which I obviously like, 2 former Isostar riders, very, very good riders. I like what Perk can do. He will be a formidable duo with Søren Kragh Andersen to attack in the flat races. I'm not sure if Groenewegen's acceleration is high enough so that you have Perk leading him out. Probably I would send Groenewegen, maybe not even to the Sprinters Classics, but have Perk and Kragh Andersen there to attack. Otherwise, I think Kragh Andersen is the perfect lead out for Groenewegen. Groenewegen is one of the best sprinters. He'll benefit from what you will see is a very poor sprinters class this year, so Groenewegen could be a top 3 sprinter in the division. None of the main riders declining. They have some homegrown talent, most importantly Hampus Anderberg. He's a formidable cobbler. He's got the time trial, but most importantly, I like what he can bring with his flat and energy stats. Very well-rounded. Doesn't have the sprint to win from a small group, but I feel like he's good enough to be a consistent top 5, top 8 rider in the cobbled classics. This team doesn't really have any gaps in their games. I mean, Domen Novak is a nice rider. He could be a decent Grand Tour rider. I don't think he'll be a top 5 Grand Tour rider, but he's very capable, especially as an attacker probably. So I think Domen Novak will be solid. Will their Grand Tour scoring be enough to be an all-around good team? I think the likes of Akero and Greek in the past have shown that you can do it capably without the big Grand Tour scoring. So I trust in Akero, and for me, despite them being in some sort of transitional year, I view them as a rather strong squad with some very intriguing riders also down the line. Christophe Laporte, for example, is a rider that can always shine a little. We have Connor Swift, who's got a nice skill set. We already talked about Søren Kragh Andersen. We already have Torkel Veje, another very cool Ferraris rider. So I think Akero will be somewhere in the Marco Kump or Martin Kaiser territory. I don't think they'll be in danger of relegation. I think they could, if very well planned, be a surprise one going up there. But let's look at the other teams and see what we think about them. Assaab should be one of the promoted teams this year. They've got Binyam Girmay on loan, if I remember correctly. They've, other than that, mostly have two riders that they will look at for their scoring. Alberto Dainese, he will benefit a lot from the sprinters competition this year, which is not great, as said. And Dainese is a young, capable sprinter. He's the future of Pro Tour sprinting. I think he'll have training invested him in the future. I see him as a not quite Fernando Gaviria type of sprinter, but could come close. So I really like what Dainese brings to the table, especially in this environment. He's got a formidable lead-out in Alexander Konichev, if Konichev is used like that. I would use Prasad and Abdul Halil differently than Dainese in other areas as stage hunters. I think they could do well, especially in Grand Tours. Prasad, I think we've seen already at Akero that he can do that. With Abdul Halil, there's obviously concern about his energy stats, but he can be there I wouldn't use him in a setup where it's one-day races, but use him in stage races a lot and see what he can do there. Then they're all fine. Jonas Rickard and Konichev probably is the best lead-out train you can get in the whole division for Dainese, so I'm really high on what Assaab has a sprint train. Wisniewski, obviously still after one decline, you will find out he'll look very similar to David Per, who's had a formidable year last year. So I think he's great. He may still be the number 2 behind Mats Pedersen in terms of cobbled ability. Got the time trial. Also got the other stats to do well in a stage racing scenario. So I think Wisniewski will still be great. Elie Gisbert, decent puncher. He's got all the energy stats that you want, but I'm missing a little bit of the punch. I'm missing a little bit of the flat stat that could benefit him even more with that skill set. So I think he's more of a there or thereabout 8th to 12th guy in Hilly Classics. The supporting cast is alright, riders like Moscon and Heininen, obviously nice guys. I like obviously Konichev and Rickard, but they'll be more on lead-out duty than having the chance to go for it themselves. They've got some cool riders down the line, but not necessarily the guys where I'm like they will be overly great. But what I like about Assaab, they have the transition from the first year. They should be in solid territory with Lukas Wisniewski, and Alberto Dainese I think has more upside than risk. So I would put them in solid Martin Kaiser territory. But yeah, as said, down the line we'll see if we have to change things up. We continue with Karlsburg Danske Bank. Karlsburg, now a well-established team by baseball lover. They spent long time in the Pro Conti Tour, going even spent quite some time at the beginning of the Continental Tour, and then they got my guy David Per last year, and he was one of the key factors for their survival. They added to their squad by bringing in Hugh Carthy. Not necessarily the guy that you want if you want to win races, but solid enough for the Grand Tours. I think they have, with Carthy and Galta, 2 guys that can finish 6th to 10th in a Grand Tour. In this engine, you'd almost hope that they lose some time early and then go into breaks, even though they don't have the best breakaway stats. So yeah, pretty decent all-around stage racing team. They're obviously not about the acceleration in the team, with Schelmose, Gregor and Egg also all more of the engine climbers, which is alright if you have Carthy and Galta as your captains. The sprint department is alright. They're, again, more the 5th to 8th finishers than the winners. in what way and what they can do. But Kragh Andersen should be a nice classic sprinter. I think Matthew Walls is okay as a sprinter, where you have him in probably a Grand Tour or two and lots of stage races. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Hugo Forcell. He's probably mostly there for the prologue because he won't be working well as a sprinter. The time trials not really there, mostly Forcell, as said. For the cobbles, they got a decent enough supporting cast. Lukas Meiler is the one I like a lot. Erik Nordsetter Resel also fits the mold of David Per well, so they should be fine. Bolivar, Goldwyn Canister, the legend from Curaçao. Props for the regional points also with Ghazi Solvaran. They should be alright in the cobbles department. They have fitting supporting casts for their leaders. I'm not sure if I like the fact that they don't really have the upside riders for attacks. Matthias Kriegbaum is a cool rider, but apart from that, I think they maybe miss one or two guys that they could use well. For the hills, they've got Alex Aramburu, who is a good guy. Again, he's not a formidable winner in the sense you can't really use him in stage races, as his time trial is too bad. If there is time trial involved, his acceleration will prevent him from being a great finisher. Following the punchiest of the punchiest guys, but his sprint is alright, his flat is alright. So he'll be there or thereabouts. I think Karlsburg is a solid team, and they should be alright, but I may have to drop them down later. I think I rate Assaab a little bit higher, but that's my gut feeling right now. I have to figure out how this continues. Then we of course have CEDITA, a team that I wouldn't have guessed would have been that good last year. Manager Red or Dead obviously is a very good manager. We've seen it. They've had to concede a little bit of their Slovenian team in order to ensure training for Tadej Pogačar, which obviously cool. And also for Ivan Siric, who's enjoyed some training, who I like a lot. One more training and he'll be there. Right now, I think he's more thereabouts. I don't really see the consistent top 10 finishing potential yet, but with his flat stamina resistance, I think he's a really, really good guy. Could be a perfect sprint lead out if the team would have kept Sondre Holstenger. They did not, so they have Dusan Rajovac for the sprints. He'll hopefully not be used in the flat races. There I would have Siric in the flat classics as my captain, and then Katarashnik, Grosze, and Poljanec as attackers. They've got a very good attacking squad. So that's what I'd focus on if I was the manager of CEDITA. The team, but Rajovac is good enough for stage hunting, and he's got the resistance stage, which may be very important to have some good efforts. So yeah, I like what CEDITA has if they plan them well in that sense, and plan Rajovac away from the flat classics and away from Pogačar. Other than that, they've focused on organic team building. Tao Geoghegan Hart is in some sort of sweet spot, I'd say, in terms of what he can do. His wage will drop even more, and he'll become a long-term valued member down the line, I think. I really liked him when I used him. CEDITA gave him great training. He's working well. He can lead a Grand Tour. Santiago Buitrago is an intriguing rider. He's got that blistering acceleration that others miss. He doesn't have the stamina, which will become more of an important factor down the line, but right now he's still youth eligible, and I think he can be a really fun guy if you can train him a little. I'm not even sure if I'd train him as a hills rider or a climber, but he can be a very interesting rider down the line. He may be sacrificed at some point to make Tadej Pogačar a world beater, but right now Buitrago is alright. They've got some mountain depth with Hatte Michel, with Power, and with Ciccone, but that's obviously focused on Pogacar. Pogacar won't receive the youth classification points anymore, which may be a little bummer. And overall, I don't think the team became stronger, given the fact that they lost Anger and a couple of other guys. They got some really nice talents in with Riley Sheehan, some already developed talents. I think Logan Curry is there new, and I'm pretty sure they signed another guy that's out on loan. And they still got the very cool team time trial team that will elevate Pogacar and Geoghegan Hart. So I think CEDITA will be fine, but they are more in Karlsburg territory for me. Maybe even Karlsburg is a little bit better. I'm not even sure. I think I may put them into the Jose Alarcon territory at this point, but should be good enough to survive. But let's see. Then we got Cycle Yorkshire. I think I should put Karlsburg down to the territory as well, but we'll see. Cycle Yorkshire, obviously a strong captain in Lucky Martin. They've almost kept the same squad running it back from last year. With Simon Yates as well. Simon Yates and Javier Romo is a good combination for the hills. Romo is the luxury domestique, and with how the game is working out this year, I think they could work the numbers well in hilly classics, so that should be really nice. I think Simon Yates, of course, is a tremendous rider. He will be really, really good for the team. He's got everything you want, one of my favorite man game riders. With Lucky Martin, of course, he's not a Grand Tour winner. I'd say he's more the podium finisher type. He doesn't really have the typical support, because I would use Stevie Williams complementary to him. But Martin works well on his own. He's not the guy that needs the big support. He's thereabouts, top 3 finisher in every race he attends probably, if it's not for the Grand Prix Liechtenstein. Should be fine. Gabriel Kulak, he should benefit from the sprint competition this year. I'm not convinced that he's a super amazing rider. I think he'll work just fine. The team doesn't have cobblers, which is okay, but you'd want 1 or 2 guys usually in your team just to get some points there. The team's got a time trial squad, but not as strong as Cycle Yorkshire used to have in the past. So they won't be scoring that high on team time trials, which could be a little bit of a concern. But the hills and the mountains department should be strong enough to survive. They don't have a train for Kulak. That's what I'm figuring. But yeah, they've got some intriguing time trial guys. If I would be them, I would be a little bit concerned about next year, where Morton and Yates start to decline. I think they should try to get in a time trial rider. I think they've kind of missed a chance on getting Filippo Ganna this year, who would have been fantastic. But yeah, solid team. I don't think they're going anywhere but mid-table. But yeah, they've got some cool riders down the line. If you look at Lasse Hansen, David Ballerini, if you look at Vincenzo Albanese, Nicola Zukowski is a good guy, but not fully convinced that they'll be up the top with the team. Then we have EA Vesuvio, and they've created a monster in Tom Wirtgen. And with Tom Wirtgen alone, who should be a top 3 rider anyway, I think his wage still is criminally under what he's worth. And with Tom Wirtgen as your main guy, you're already good, very good. Nick van der Leike has his last hooray this year after he declines, before he declines pretty roughly. Other than Wirtgen, the team is filled with a lot of guys that are alright. Matej Mohoric, former rider of mine, I really liked him and helped him develop. I remember that when he was my highest wage guy in the promotion season, the Pro Conti Tour, and he was still a level 3 or level 4 guy. I think level 4 guy. And he still scored fantastic in Pro Conti Tour, but times change. And he doesn't have the flashy attributes to be a race winner if not everything comes together. So I think he's more a lower top 10 guy. Lukas Spengler similarly has never really done too well. But on that wage of 250k, he's a very reasonable pickup. Also, quite some time until he declines. Spengler should be fine. Other than that, they've got Alex Kirsch, who is notorious for being a good Grand Tour attacker. They've got a formidable team time trial team filled with riders that can hold on to an advantage that they gained in the team time trial. I'm, of course, looking at Byron Munton, but I'm also looking at the likes of Stefan de Bort, Janos Pelikan. They all got the stats to survive an advantage. Bob Jungels and Ray Onodera are also good enough to do so. And I think EA Vesuvio is set. I'm not sure they are the title contender number 1 with the squad, despite having Wirtgen trained. But they should be there. Definitely. And as said, if Wirtgen can become the best rider of the division, they could go even higher, but we'll see. Then we go to Evonik Elko. And Evonik has 2 of the best guys in the division, with Pierre-Henri Lecuisinier and Miguel Angel Lopez. I know that they're really focused on winning hilly classics with Miguel Angel Lopez to win that final Liège title. And they did alright with strengthening the team, but also they're on a very tight budget, looking at the wages that Le Cuisinier and Miguel Angel Lopez together take all over 2 million out of the wage budget. So you don't really have other riders. That's the blessing and the curse with having the top level riders. So what that means for the team is that if Herklotz again is not at the Tour de France and Le Cuisinier is there, they're already almost guaranteed a Tour win, which obviously is great. And then with Lopez, it's more hit and miss what he can do in the classics. I think that he's in a good spot. He got that mountain training, so he's superior in mountain stats as well. I think counterintuitively to what you'd guess, he benefits from riders like Aruya joining as well, because there's more hilly guys interested in making the race hard on the climbs, which could at the end benefit Miguel Angel Lopez. So maybe this is the year where he finally wins Liège. I think other than that, Polansch had an amazing season. Not sure if he can have the same season as well, but he still got some cool stats. Chris Snylands is still there with him. The team got the depth to support Le Cuisinier very well. Luke Plupp is an up-and-coming monster. Maybe the title window is even more open next year when Plupp's had 1 more year of development. But with him now, with Tobias Voss and what he could do to the team, I think Evonik should be one of the key teams to success. The question marks that I have is, do they have anybody strong enough to attack in the flat races? They've got Stepan Kuryanov, which is amazing. The sprinters are alright, but they're mostly Grand Tour sprinters, so they should be complementary used to Le Cuisinier. I think Evonik is there, and they should be one of the title favorites if they can work Le Cuisinier and Lopez well, which I trust manager Knockout very well, that he will be there. And for them, it always felt like they're close to the title, and this year may be the year where they win it. Then we have Fastnet by Roturn, which took a surprising turn to Pro Conti Tour last year, and a less surprising turn to regain promotion. They've got Tyler Finney, obviously one of the big guys. Quite surprised that Finney's got a lower average rating than Van Zevenand here. Maybe that's a hint towards looking at how the average ratings pan out. Because while Van Zevenand is a fantastic rider, and he's the prototype if you train him plus 2 hills, he's only a couple of secondary stats away of what Pidcock could have become without training. So that's insane. I think Van Zevenand will be one of the top 5, top 3 punchers of the future, no doubt. Taylor Finney is there with his last top class year. He will be fine, but he doesn't have the team time trial team. Apart from Mario Gonzalez Salas, who's new from Assaab. You see that the team, untypically for manager Rotan, invested into riders that are older this year. Finney, Valens came over from Zara Irizar, Mario Gonzalez Salas, all declining next year, so they were about survival. But I think Van Zevenand can become one of these surprise stories of this year. He's still youth classification eligible. Asset, fantastic asset. Tim Valens, good enough, so they have, between Valens and Finney, they have 2 of the 3 Grand Tours covered. Great for time trials. The hills are well set. The cobbles are set with Nathan van Hooijdonk. He probably has not the best cobble support. He may be isolated pretty early, which is always a concern in cobbles, but should probably be all right. For the sprints, it's a little bit of a shame that they do not have a sprinter nor the proper flat attackers, so they may concede those flat classics a little. And as I said, there are 2 or 3 time trial guys down to compete for the title, in my opinion. But between Van Zevenand, Finney, and Wellens, they have 3 guys, and Van Hooijdonk to an extent as well. They have 3 to 4 guys who could score 1,000 points. So yeah, the team is really strong. I would say they're more into this Marco Kump territory. I think maybe even slightly ahead of Akero, probably. We have to come back to that, but I think Fastnet are very well set for the division. And then we have a Gazelle team, which I always envied as a rider back in the days when they had guys like Tadel Kangert, who was a really cool guy, Tony Galopin. This time around, they still got guys like that in Giovanni Aleotti, for example, who had a very different training than what you would have expected at the beginning. They spent big on Andreas Leknesund last year, and I'm sure that he's going to be a guy trained in the future. They've also got some good guys in Kamil Maletsky, of course, former Grand Tour revelation. Very deep squad. You always have the high stamina and resistance stats with the team. They are led by Alexei Lutsenko, who's blistering fast uphill. I used to manage him, and I liked managing him. I think he's a good puncher. He could benefit from the decline of other punchers right now. And his last year, I think he's down to win a couple of big races. Especially if he can just be in the shadow of the main guys and then overpower them in the last kilometer or something. And he's got support that is very good. Support that would fit a guy like Van Zevenand even better, in my opinion. If you look at what Aleotti, Maletsky, Nance Petersk do, they're almost too good for him in terms of backups. But still, Lutsenko, very good captain. Joe Dombrowski, after one decline, still good enough to win races. And let me quickly check if he does have the... he cannot ride 2 Grand Tours. That would have been perfect if he would have had the 2 Grand Tours. Now they probably have Bartosz Warhol for the other Grand Tours, or Giovanni Carboni, which is also good. So Dombrowski is still a good rider who guarantees you at least 800 points, probably more. Leknesund is up and coming. Next year he'll definitely be trained, I would guess, to 80 time trial, but we'll see with all the time trial training this year. Mike Tönnissen is a cobbler, not good enough in the cobbles, in my opinion, similar to Sebastian Lander for the sprints. Not really a fan of the flat lineup, and they don't have the guys to surprise in that territory. So I'm not sold on what they have in the cobbles and sprints department. So I don't think it will be Gazelle's year this year. I think they're more in transition with Dombrowski, Varchol, Ternison, and Lutsenko leaving. They got their first big building block in Leknesund. And also, I think they'll do a lot with Aleotti. I can see them just investing heavily in him. They got the base, but I think the next 1, 2, 3 years will be more transitional years. So if Lutsenko has a stellar season, and Dombrowski, if Dombrowski would have had 2 Grand Tours, I would have probably put them here. Right now, I have them more in the Martin Kaiser territory this year. Where I'm not that convinced that Gazelle is the top quality team. But we'll have to figure. Then we have the team of Greek Mesh, the Danish team built around the Danish superstars Mats Pedersen, first and foremost, the by far best cobbled rider at this point, and Mats Wurz-Schmidt, who's also a really good guy. Apart from that, the team is mostly about depth, which is alright. I would have guessed them to have a little more focus on a more concentrated focus on the third winner. The good thing is Pedersen can even hold his own in the flat classics, even though if he would have gone to like 80 sprint or something, they would have never ever had to worry about that as well. So they got the time trial team, not first class time trial team, because there is no real winner besides Wirtz. And of the time trial is that they have nobody's really down to hold their own in a tougher environment. When they have to when they have to score depth points in more hilly stage races with a team time trial or normal time trial or mountain races, I think they're not too well set for that. Having said that, with Pedersen, you're guaranteed to have one of the best scorers in the division. With Wirtz, he suffers under the Wirtgen training, but he's still good. Yeah, but apart from those, Kort Nielsen, not the guy that you want to rely on training, scoring points. With Lidl, we've seen that in the past. I think with Trüg, we've seen that. He may be a little hit or miss. David Godou did more than his sprint and acceleration would suggest, but I also think he benefited from the CEDITA environment. And the team may have Gebreis Gahibier as the captain, which I do not trust in the hilly races. For the climbers, Alex Roman is good, a cool rider, but I'm not sure if they have the uphill capability to be a very good team. Apart from Mats Pedersen, I don't think it's going to be Greek's year. And I also don't really see the upside this year. So with Greek, I think they are more in the Kaiser territory. I'll put them close to Assaab Loy and Cycle Yorkshire. So yeah, with Pedersen obviously being perfect, I do not really think that the lineup around them is too good. So let's continue with the Ura Giants. They've built up in basically not really new team. They went in with most of the riders from last year. They have Maro Schmid now, fully maxed and up and ready to become very good. They've signed Caden Groves from free agency, had to pay lots, 670k, for a rider that is not sure to be a good scorer in Pro Tour, but for a rider that is young enough to be a very good asset in the future. And now what they did is pretty obvious in my opinion. They've signed Groves to Schmid to have a very good core for the future, both 25 and 26. They are very young. They've got Xuban Eraskin last year, who's also an interesting rider, also 28 years of age. Case Ball, 29 years of age. I think they got both last year. None over 30. Also Valentin Darbelay, who's received training. All pretty young guys in that sense. And I think what Jura is doing is clearly building a base. And I'm not sure if they're too bothered about relegation. Obviously, they would prefer not to relegate. But the team is definitely built towards surviving relegation and coming right back up and being stronger. For example, if they can train Mauro Schmid just as a thought experiment, if they relegate this year, sell Eddie Turns, get a cobbler from free agency that is all right, and just push down the wages of Groves and Schmid, and then just train Schmid +2 in Hills. They've immediately got an awesome contributor and a perfect base for the World Tour, and they don't really have to make any sacrifices with the team to get straight back up and become even stronger. They could obviously also survive, but most of their Pro Conti Tour success, if I remember correctly, was also built on the time trial squad around Bissegger, Brunel, Stefan Küng, Simon Rekita. They've added Ethan Vernon and Krzysztof Machewka. Machewka was there as well. So they added guys, but with that lineup, you've dominated Pro Conti Tour, but you're not going to dominate the World Tour anymore. They can, to some extent, hold their own, but they're also not the stage racing time trialists. So while they will score points in the time trials, it's not the big depth points that you would maybe expect. And I think only Brunel and Küng should be strong enough to hold their own. So yeah, not too thrilled by that perception. Eddie Turns lost a little bit through that first decline. It hit him to an extent that I'm not sure if he can contend, especially that 71 flat really concerns me combined with the 71 resistance. So Turns is not the guy he used to be anymore, and I have doubts about Ura Giants. I know that the manager, who is Fabianski, has done a stellar job at race planning, and I trust him to do great race planning, so I think they could also be higher up. But right now, with what Schmid and Groves look like for this year, I'm not too sold that the team can do well enough to survive right now. Despite, as I said, also with the sprinters, they've got Groves, they've got Boll, and they've got Sharka. And I think both Groves and Boll would be very good Pro Conti sprinters. But they have a similar skill set. They don't really work together too well. And I'm just afraid that this is not a setup that is strong enough for the Pro Tour. Of course, they got some beautiful riders, Gabi Chavan in here. But also not really the punchy guys to win attacking stages. They have to bet on Mauro Schmid doing very well, Caden Groves doing very well, maybe even give Caden Groves 2 Grand Tours to use his 80 recovery, and have Case Ball. They're just very similar. It's difficult. I'm not sold on Ura despite loving the team building in many cases, and I think they'll go down and then shoot up with a record-breaking Pro Conti Tour season and be a formidable Pro Tour force in 2 years' time. Then we have King Power, one of the best teams straight up now, and they've got this, some would consider the robbery of a trade that got them Brandon McNulty and the opportunity to train him even further. King Power has him as the most notable addition. They also got Rasmus Tiller, who's a good cobbler. Out of the team, out of all notable riders, there's nobody over 29, so the team structure is really healthy. With Yevgeny Gidic, they've got one of the top class punchers. He does not have the sprint, although he's got the acceleration and the acceleration to be strong enough, but he's more like a weaker version of Miguel Angel Lopez, and not that guy, that Lutsenko type of guy that can beat somebody through the punch. So he may suffer under riders like Areruya coming. It being a very strong hills competition this year. Brandon McNulty is obviously a very good rider. I'm not sure what his niche is yet. Whether it is Grand Tour racing right now, whether it's stage racing. It's probably stage racing in the sense that he will be used also in the team time trials, where they have Yuta Namano, a fantastic home nation rider from Thailand that manager BikeX built up very well. The good thing about their team is they don't really have any gaps in their game. They probably lack a guy for 2 Grand Tours that can be good there. I mean, they got guys like Tanaka and Chaya Sombat who can do that very well. But the strength of the team is not only the time trial, but also that all the time trialists, Rune Herregods, firstly, but also Dylan van Baarle, Shoi Matsuda, to an extent, Kahu Fung, that they all can do other things so that they are both useful in other races and can score the depth points that you really want to score as a team. They've got the 82 prologue Chun Wenling. Rune Herregods is a formidable prologue rider. Shoi Matsuda is a formidable prologue rider. So they can score all those hidden points that you, at the end of the season, wonder how they accumulated them through depth, through those 20 to 40 place range scorings. And that's very valuable. They've got a very good support squad for Gidic with Ronnie Lankita, who's one of the coolest guys in the whole peloton. Rune Herregods can do his job there. Ho-San Chiu is not a bad rider to support. And I think the team is very well set to be a top 5 team. I do not trust them to win it all this year. The sprint team with Soang Pin Su is alright, but not very special. Tanavut will definitely be a Grand Tour sprinter again. So at the end of the day, for me, they probably are in the lower end Edvald Boasson-Hagen territory, because I think they'll be thereabouts, but not the title winning caliber this year. Then we've got Lidl Cycling, and I cut when I formatted the Excel. I decided to leave it like this because what you can't see is they still have 3 stagiaires in Matuzevicius, Bugramko, and Figueiredo Leme. But I was like, their team is big enough and they won't be that big of a contributor on stagiaire contracts, so why not focus on all the others? And the team's got the typical stamina and resistance overload that you would expect from a team managed by manager JPH27. It's been a long-lasting team with a long-lasting approach. They've used to be elevating to between Pro Tour and Pro Conti Tour. I think nowadays they're mid-table World Tour team, established themselves as a mid-table World Tour team with those high-energy guys. We know Salim Kemboy can do very well. Especially in the classics, which means the one-day races. He can also do it in a Grand Tour. He has the prologue to be very interesting, similar to Niklas Lasse, who came over from Greek Maersk and definitely is a formidable signing. They've got a good lead-out in David Decker for Kemboy, and this year could be the year where Kemboy can shine again. I think he'll seem to lose a little bit of his magic last year, but he can be back up there if used well, even though I would have liked the team investing in Kemboy's sprint stats. Other than that, they've got Sean Deby from last year. He's declined a little, but I don't think it hurts Deby a lot. Counterintuitively, there may be a strong side from that he's not the top favorite on the list anymore, as marked. as he was and could come from more of an outside role. That said, he's quite similar to Mate Mohoric in a sense that I don't see the scenario where he wins races if he's not winning through a surprise attack, which I don't see coming. So I'm not sure if DB is the solution to Lidl's big scoring, and with Camboa being a little hit or miss, there is not really that one scorer that you can bank on. Mathieu van der Poel, obviously a very cool guy, but the team won't ride as far up the race as they used to be with DB in the Hilly Classics. So all the depth riders that are pretty nice, Leo Vincent, not the craziest guy, but still cool, especially Alberto Bettiol and Mathieu van der Poel, they'll have to be further down in the peloton. So they'll have to spend more energy to be part of the finals, and they have the energy stats to do so, but they may lose a little bit of their magic with the B declining and being less well positioned than he used to be in the past. So having said that, apart from the hill stats, I'm not really sold on the team. Marcus Faglum Carlsen is a good hang-on rider. He can do well from an attack with his flat stats. I like that the team always has these good flat stats with their climbers. But that said, the team does not seem strong enough for me to have any notable results in the mountains. The time trial team is nice, but not really there. I mean, Prado and Fernandes can probably do work well from stage races, time trial heavy stage races, but I don't think the team is strong enough to have a great team time trial. More, they have the prologue chances, and you have to see what they can get out of these prologues. Benjamin Thomas, obviously a very cool rider that they got from Zara Iriza, but I think the team should have cut some of their cool lower end riders and got one or two more captains in that are really nice. When I look at the team, I think they could end up with nobody scoring more than 650, 700 points. And that could be dangerous. I don't think Lidl is safe this year, despite how nice the team may look like. And I put them more towards the CEDITA category, maybe even slightly behind them this year. Though they're a team that can always rise up through the ranks if they can make Van der Poel, Bettiol, Jose Fernandez work really. But this year, I'm not sure if it's easy enough to find this upside. So right now, they're down in here for me. And likewise, maybe a team that I always tend to underrate, which is Mole Cycling Team. They've had a formidable first year in World Tour. Manager Jack Sika has found a reputation as a hard negotiator, and he created a team that is very mountain heavy, that has Jack Haig as their leader. They paid 1.3 million euros to get him in, which is quite a sum for a rider that is not yet, or is not, will not become the likely Grand Tour winner. He is no doubt a good rider, but the team, has to rely on him being very good. They also got Takeaki Amezawa coming over from Akero MOT. He's a really cool rider, really aggressive one. I think he can score. He will score at least one Grand Tour stage win. But the team with Haig, with Ardila, with Amezawa, with Almeida, they've put a lot of eggs in one basket, in the stage racing climbers basket, and they don't really have the versatile riders. They'll probably use Haig in some more, in only one Grand Tour and some more time trial heavy races, and have Amezawa and Almeida both ride 2 Grand Tours or something. Not sure what they'll do with Ardila, probably just as a hills captain. I think he'd be very cool in that role. And what he could also do is win a lot of white jerseys as a 25-year-old with his hill and mountain stat. He's more of a rider that you don't know what you get from him yet, so he could be very good. He could also be a Jose Alarcon rider. Apart from those climbers and the fact that I'm not sure if Ardila really works as a hill rider, they've only got one more scorer in the team with Marcos Altur. He hasn't been too great in the past, but his 300k wage is alright. With Tim Ardis and David Moric and Calum Scottson, he's got okay support, which should be fine. But the team's not really winning anything in the sprints or doesn't really have the attacking guys. If you, for example, look at the acceleration column, there's a lot of low acceleration riders that won't really be flashy. So they have to bank on finding the right Grand Tour for Hague and get a little bit lucky with Amezawa, in my opinion, or with Joe Almeida. And I think that Jaksika has done very well so far in showing that he can find those races, but I also put them into this danger zone territory because I'm not convinced that they are good enough to secure such big results as they would wish for. And I think the Hague signing was quite a gamble. They lose a lot of points from the what they had with Finney before. Okay, from one team that is very climbing focused to another one that on the first glance seems very climbing focused, to Moser Sigic. And the thing with Moser is they have two riders that are clearly set up to be world beaters. Fernando Gaviria is out and out the best sprinter in the division, I would say by far. But, and the big but is, I do not see a proper lineup for his support. I'm not convinced that Axel Nomela, he could be alright, but I'm not sure if Nomela is really is the perfect rider to lead him out. And then they don't really have a third guy that fits, that high flat, decent sprint, low acceleration guy that can push up a train. And they just do not have that rider type in their team. So while Gaviria should be a well over 1,000 points rider, I'm not sure if Moser put him in the position to be that strong of a sprinter. And for me, it looks like they'll probably send a team without any sprinter and hope that he doesn't receive a train. But that's a big gamble for Moser. And for the main riders, apart from Gaviria, there is Merhawi Kudus. Merhawi Kudus, of course, with a big training last year to 85 mountains, has a good team. Has Jan Hirt probably riding complementary to him because Hirt is, because to put it blankly, they don't have any scorers apart from Kudus, Gaviria, and Hill and Hirt, so they have to do it that way. And I think that Kudus will be on his own quite a lot. So while the team is obviously good, they have the same issue that Evonik has, that they basically have to find their points in low wage riders and optimize the setup for their main leaders. And I don't think that Moser did that particularly special this year. So I don't see Moser really in the title fight, despite what they could do with Kudus and Gaviria. And at the end, to me, this may be controversial, but I'll put them more into the mid-table position this year. Because I just do not have the vision who's going to score outside of the big 2.5 riders up front. Yeah, probably somewhere around here. Maybe even down there. Maybe a little harsh on Moser. And we know that Roman has done well in the past, especially with planning. But we'll have to see if the team can do well enough. Then we have Oxo Frisby, the team with the newest manager in the Pro Tour, which is manager Nemolito. Oxo Frisby used to be known as Los Pollos Hermanos, the Mexican team with a focus on South America as well. This year they're also got the Colombian secondary focus this year, secondary nationality, and they've rightly got the leader in Sergio Higuita that fits the mold of this hilly focus, this Colombian focus. The issue with Higuita is he's got no support in the hills. They've got the wrong Beltran from Chile. He's okay. I mean, but he's the only guy that really fits the team. And with Higuita, there are some concerns that other riders in the division just overtook him. And I don't see the vision where Higuita is more than an 8th to 10th guy rider in a hilly classic. So that may be difficult to overcome. However, the team has got some depth. First of all, in Marlen Zmorka, one of the victims of the Wirtgen training, surely. But the good thing about Oxo Frisby is they've got a formidable team time trial team. Again, no riders that will hang on to any sort of team time trial advantage in stage races, or time trial advantage in stage races, but good enough to win team time trials in the World Tour, and that's a big W for them. I'm talking about Jascha Sitterlin, who can win time trials himself, about Bilgun Jangar Erdenebat from Mongolia. We're talking about Danny Eaton, Victor Ocampo, also very old Panagiotis Vlatos. So yeah, the team is well set for team time trials, and Smorka can win races by himself. They also got DK Jalgiri's finest in Christopher Halvorsen as a signing. He's a good sprinting option. They also got Gabriel Marin, who will be there in stage races as a stage hunter, I'm pretty sure. I think the combination of both makes sense for the team. They, similarly to other teams, do not have a train for both, which should work out mostly. So Halvorsen probably will be in the races where all the big sprinters are, so that he can just serve the trains. And for Marin, he needs smaller crowds anyway, smaller sprinter crowds anyway to shine. So they should be fine. Then we have the neglected cobbles. They've got Jose Gerardo Ulloa, but I don't think he'll be of any use despite attacking early maybe. What's more interesting about the team is the climbers department, which we look at last. That has Ryan Eastman, and Ryan Eastman has this benefit of a very good team time trial squad if needed, so he can be there in the stage races where there are team time trials. I think that Eastman did not do too well the last time he's been in World Tour. So we'll have to see if Oxo Frisby can make use of him. I think he's a maximum 1 Grand Tour rider with the skill set, and the other two Grand Tours should be done by Oloui Allah, who's not a great rider by himself, but has the mountain stats to be good enough in the Grand Tours where there is less of the best climbers available. I think for the team, it's really difficult to plan, and the manager Nemolito has to do a fantastic job of planning to have a chance of surviving. And then it is possible, but having a rider like Aula, they have to be in the Alacon territory anyway. And there I'd put them, similar to Moll and Lidl Trek probably. We have to look at those teams at the end to make a proper prediction of who's going to relegate and who's not, but I think this may be the range where they land at the very end. But again, Oxo Frisby is a team. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up upper mid-table. I would also not be surprised if they end up second to last or something at the end. It's just the team does not have any scorer where you're safe that they can score, but they have scored, but they have plenty of scorers where they can do well. And the good thing about the team is almost all of the main riders, especially with the local ones, Igita, Aular, Lopez Nolasco, also Christopher Halvorsen, they're all 28 and younger. So they have the long-term vision in mind, and if the long-term vision is definitely fine. So I do not have any long-term concerns for Oxo Frisby. But from one long-term team to another long-standing team, it's a team that has been that has struggled over the last years a little, but now is rising back up and finally seems like a formidable team back again. If you look at those angry red columns, you enjoy what Egan Bernal and Pierre Latour as their main double punch can bring to the table. Egan Bernal is a solidified star. He's got all the energy stats in the world. He's got the time trial. He's got the mountain stats. I think he's the future of stage racing. Tadej Pogacar is great, but Bernal looks even better. And he's received the massive training, and he'll continue to receive the massive training, I'm pretty sure. So Egan Bernal, without a doubt, one of the key riders for the team. Pierre-Roger Latour, he's good. I think if that's possible, and there I need to check again, it is possible, I would send Latour to Tour Grand Tours with the team if they can field the other races. Pierre-Roger Latour, not the one that will win a Grand Tour, but he can be a top 3 rider, in my opinion. Depends on which races Bernal is sent to at the end and if they have other spaces open, because Kevin Inkelar is also a rider that should only really work in Grand Tours, and Enric Mas is also more of a Grand Tour rider. So similarly to what Moll's cycling team has done, they may be a little overcooked for Grand Tours. But on the positive side, that may allow them to use one of those riders to attack for multiple stage wins, which could be great. But if I was the manager, I would have tried to use one or two other guys to get in a proper puncher, because right now the team lacks anybody that can compete in the hill races. They've got Enric Mas as the best bet, Cyril Barthé, but they won't have proper positioning in the races to compete. So they kind of gave up on the hilly classics, and employing Ricardo Ferreira as their best cobbler basically also gives up on the cobbled classics. However, and there's the interesting part, it will be very interesting to see what they do with Jasper Philipsen, because Jasper Philipsen obviously is one of the best sprinters, and contrary to other teams, they've got a good lead out in either Ivan Garcia Cortina or in Karl Patrick Lauk. And you got to build around Philipsen as well. He's perfectly fitting the timeline of Egan Bernal. The question is it worth it to train up his cobbled stats in the long term? Because right now he can't compete in the cobbles, but long term, if he goes to 77 cobbles, he could be a very interesting force in the cobbles. But yeah, that was just a side note to what the team can go to in the future. Right now, the team is good. It is very good indeed, with Bernal, Latour, Philipsen all destined to score well. However, it does not have the upside to go all the way, because the lower end riders are just not good enough. I mean, they've also got Ryan Mullen as a nice rider to score well. But if the team, having Steph Krull, having Ryan Mullen, having Bernal, can next year invest into a couple of more great time trialists, or in a puncher that does really well, maybe consider replacing Mas and Inkelar. With those, they could go all the way to win it all if they do well. Right now, they're Uh, I think the potential of Bernal makes them being in this Edvard Boasson-Hagen category. But then again, there is not really the upside. So maybe they're just in the upper Martin Kaiser territory. I don't know. Maybe here, maybe here. Let's put them in the Boasson-Hagen territory. But as said, good, but not great. That's what I would consider them. Now continue with Rabobank. Rabobank, the first thing you see about the team, 3 guys with 32 years of age. So it seems like an all-in team. However, then you look at the next guy and see it's Remco Evenepoel. And Remco Evenepoel not even maxed already the 4th best rider and a fantastic rider already. Surely meant to become a really, really good stage racer, even though he's not got the recovery stats to be there as the guy of stage racing in the future. With Remco Evenepoel, the team may also have the long-term vision, but right now they should focus on keeping the team together. I don't think they had a lot of moves. Andreas Kron came in, but apart from that, the team basically stayed the same. Formolo may struggle with guys like Igita coming in, with guys like Areruya coming in. More guys that look similar to him, but are just a little bit better. I'm not sure if Formolo can keep up his scoring this year. Then we have Eduard Grossu, who's only 3rd in the Rabobank ranks, but I think 2nd by sprint stats in the whole division. And he's got Bas van der Kooi maybe as a lead out, and Jordimeus, which could work. So that's all right. And the team, I think the integral part of the team is Floris Gertz in his final year on 82 cobbles. Very good rider also with the 78 hills, 70 resistance. Lacks a little bit of the acceleration to finish the race off, but good enough. I think Rabobank is very much into solid territory. However, long term, we have to see Danny van Poppel. What do they do with Van Poppel? Probably a lot of Grand Tours, a lot of stage races. Van der Kooi maybe also the Grand Tour sprinter. We don't really know that. They do have support for Gertz. That looks alright. They don't really have a time trial guy. Remco, I don't think he's yet there to have formidable results. I'm not sold on the Hills team. Even though they have great depth, they don't really have the leader in the Hills. And I don't think that the team can work too well as in terms of positioning, because I think Formolo or Gertz will be far down the order on the start list, and the team may be too far down. So really only cobbles and sprints as the big surefire point scorers. That may be dangerous. I was about to put them in the Kaiser territory, but they may be more in the Alacon territory, to be honest. Maybe a difficult season for Rabobank. Then we have Team Puma SAP, and with Silvio Herklotz, you'd argue that you're always bound to be a title contender. The question is, does the rest of the team fit what they have as a squad? I do not know if the team did some training this year. Max Kanter got trained last year. I don't think he's changed a lot this year. They brought in Leonard Kemner, who was pricey, but a long-term, rider that the manager Chio93 wished for. Valentin Madouas has got a fantastic skill set. I think if you're the manager, you would look for training him as a Hills rider, mostly out of all those riders that are in the team, or have Leonard Kemner trained as a time trialist. if you want to add to your scoring. The team is basically the opposite to the time trial squads, to the team time trial squads, where you have all this high time trial numbers, low others, because all the time trialists have a purpose of winning points in other races. If you look at Stork and Chemazar, it's more the climbing. If you look at Cavagna and O'Brien, it's more about the hills and the cobbles, and the hybrid time trial races do work well for the team. Lennart Kemner should be fine. In terms of sprints, I think they bank on Max Kanter do not needing a lead out. Cavagna could do it reasonably well. But apart from that, not really. That's so that they have high scorer besides Herklotz, but then again, Herklotz is just should win every race he attends. So it will be difficult to stop him. Let's see how he fights with Miguel Angel Lopez in Liège if Herklotz goes to Liège again. Probably. But if you've got Herklotz, you always want to have basically the same schedule of races that you almost know that you win. So I think it should be quite predictable to what Chio does with him. And then we have Kanter, who should be decent, but we'll see. Felix Groß is in the team, coming from Moser Sigic. I would guess he was only loaned out there. I don't see the vision what he brings to the team, to be honest. Maybe Grand Tour Sprinter where Herklotz is not there. Apart from that, some good attacking riders for the races where Herklotz is not there. But not too many amazing attackers. And I'm struggling to see the second scorer that's also high enough up the ranks to really work, because there is not really a cobbled scorer. Jonas Rutsch is not good enough for that. They do have the sprinter and Kanter, but I'm not sold on what he can bring to the table. They have those hybrid time trial guys, but who's going to win them points in the races where Herklotz is not there when it's uphill? I don't see anybody that can be really used well in those races and is recognized by the AI yet. Madouas can be there with some training, but not too sure that he will. Kemner could be there with some mountain or time trial training. Not sure he's there yet. I think Puma is good, and has the potential to go all the way up. But I don't think that they are there just yet with the team building. Then we have Team Tinkoff Ladacha, another team that I always tend to underrate. They'll always work with their depth, and they have a great leader in Pavel Sivakov, the French-Russian guy, who's got a good support. Most notably, Alexander Vlasov is a considerably good rider. Matvey Mamikin, the prototype of an outlier stage racer, to support him. Apart from that, as always, Sivakov with a good squad. As always, few changes with the team. Nikita Razumov came over from Lidl Cycling. He's definitely adding to the time trial team that faced some damage with Kirill Yatsevich declining. So next in line, the team time trial squad, however, is not what it used to be back then when Tinkoff was dominating the time trials. They do have 479 riders, but 77, 76, 74 is not really good enough to win team time trials at this level anymore. Tom Skuyens, the highest rider by overall, but his skill set should not work. I mean, those 69s look worse than they are with not being light green. But I think he's fallen off a cliff. So not sure if Skuyens brings enough points. And then they already got, of course, the double Strakov with the one in disguise and Yevgeny Tikhonin. But I will continue to underrate them again and say I don't expect much from the Hill squads. I think the Hill squad and the time trial squads look better than they are. Sivakov is good, but I'm concerned that other riders like Egan Bernal overtook him. Maybe. And with guys like Pogacar coming in, it will be even more difficult for Sivakov. Florian Sénéchal is a good cobbler, but is he better than the likes of Van Hooijdonk? Is he better than the likes of Per? Is he better than the likes of Wisniewski? I don't really see it. In terms of sprints, Artem Samolenkov. He's always been a very good rider. I think he's not a 400k rider, as he is, but he can do well. Alan Banaszek could work as a Grand Tour sprinter. The team is, as always, a good stamina resistance team. The team has its highs, I think one of the most versatile ones in terms of 81s all across the board. Even with guys like Arman Kamishev, who has the odd and out results here and there, Alexander Zulimov. But at the end of the day, I do not trust Tinkoff to be very good, and I may be very controversial here, but for me, they may even be in the Theo Boss category, fearing that this may be the year where Tinkoff has to look down on possibly relegating. I mean, they could be alright, of course, but as Sivakov, Sénéchal, Samolenkov, Banaszek, and Alex Vlasov, who I've missed a little in this overview, who are good, but I don't have the fullest of trust in the team, and they may fall off. Probably they're better in the Alarcon territory. But yeah, it's going to be difficult for Tinkoff, because they have so many riders that are hit and miss apart from Pavel Sivakov, who's, in my opinion, dropped down the order a little. Let's continue with Xero Racing. And if we talk about a hit and miss team, Xero is very much up there. They spent lots on Filippo Ganna this year. High spending, very good rider. Doesn't have any other time trialists in the team. That's a problem. That's a real concern for the team. Because if you have a good time trialist, you want to use it with more good time trialists so that the benefits of going to all the time trial races accumulate. And that's what the team really needs to work on in the next years, because if you have Ganna, you really want to use Ganna as much as you can. I think I've slandered Pidcock as much as I can over the last years. The Pidcock training, he could have been the best puncher right away. He's now a cool asset to play with, but he's not yet a 540k wage guy that he's meant to be. If your highest main stat is 76 and you're at an overall of almost 79, that first of all means that you're formidable backups, but second of all shows that the average scale just massively overvalues what you can achieve, and the team is hurt by that. They've got Matti Manninen from Los Pollos Hermanos coming over. Manninen is also on high wage, but he's proven that he's good without a lead-out train, which is nice, even though Xero has some proper lead-out riders. I like what Yassin Hamza can bring to the table. The team is okay in terms of cobbles, but I don't think they'll work there this year. They have Florian Vermeesch and Tom Pidcock. If Pidcock is capable of being there already, and with the AI recognizing him, then it's alright, but I don't think that works in Pro Tour. I think he would be a formidable Pro Conti rider right now. But I think he's not good enough to be a World Tour rider at this point with those stats. And I'm concerned about that with Xero Racing. They've got Joseph Areruya, who's absolutely demolished Pro Conti Tour last year. Joseph Areruya is a weaker version of Miguel Angel Lopez, I would say. He's great, obviously. And he will race as many hilly and mountains classics as he can. But he's not a top 3 stage racer in any type of stage races. And the real issue with Xero is that they cannot choose as much of the calendar as they used to. They don't have the hybrid races that you want to have for Pidcock to score big, and they can't just pick what Aruya can do. They have to field teams for 3 Grand Tours while not having a single proper Grand Tour rider besides James Fauché, who I'm not too sure if he's good enough for the Grand Tours. And Yassine Hamza, the team is not good enough to score on cobbles. Filippo Ganna, as said, is great, but you need to work him really well, and he also needs the right PTHC races. And I'm not too sure if manager Jandal knows or knew that he would sign Ganna before he started, when he picked his races. I am concerned that this is a lineup that looks formidable on paper, but suffers under the rules and the workings of how the Pro Tour works. And I fear that it's going to be difficult to stay up with the squad. And they could be great. They could be an upper mid-table team if they really get Areruya and Ganna and especially Pidcock to work. If riders like Florian Vermeersch can contribute already. But I'm not sure if I've seen enough from the team to make that happen. The good thing about the team is Pidcock may already work in some sort of flat-ish races where you can use him. But again, I'm not sold on Xero, and I think they'll be in huge relegation danger. I put them somewhere between Lille and Moll, and I recognize that you can't see Lille and Tinkoff anymore, but we'll take a look at that at the very end. It's difficult to arrange the column otherwise, but yeah. Let's look at the final team. This is Zara Irizar. And with Zara Irizar, we have the team of Luis Leon Sanchez. Long-lasting member of the community, Luis Leon Sanchez has had loads of building around their young riders. We see them with Fabio Jakobsen, with Nicola Conchi, with Herbert Theisse. They've worked a lot on building through them, and I think that worked out. But that's a small but to the team. They've lost a couple of them on the way, not only guys like Boris Shaveljevich, but also some really strong guys. I remember, for example, Domen Novak was on the team as a talent back then. And they've added some really nice riders. Most importantly, the stage racers this year, Chen Shikai and Kiho Choi, which both worked well in the Pro Conti Tour. But there is the question how well they may work in the World Tour, because they're more the hang-around guys in the World Tour. The good thing is, with their averages being quite low, they should be able to ride plenty of races. I think both with over 50 race days should easily do all 3 Grand Tours between them, which is good. And then you can use them in stage races apart from that as well. You've got some really cool riders, another homegrown in Benoit Connefroy, and also Nicola Conchi, who can do well in those hybrid races, and who you could have built around your PTHC schedule. With Jakobsen and Theisse, you have 2 good riders where I honestly don't know who's better. Probably I would send Jakobsen to more stage races and let Thijsse ride the classics, but it also depends a lot on how you anticipate what the start lists look like. Between those two and Jules Hesters, they've got 3 riders that should allow the team to field a sprinter in any race they attend. At least a sprinter that can do something. They've got a lot of these hilly riders that I'm not sure have a purpose in the team. If you look at Finkler, Gogel, De La Cruz, Støve, Dieteren, and Mikel, there are 6 pure hilly guys in support of Michael Storer, who's newly came in. 330k wage was incredible, and I'm not too sure that those 330k wage will be justified, because Storer, I cannot see that he's recognized as a hills leader. For Zara Iriza, I think it's going to be troublesome. What I like about them, they can field a capable rider to any race. Also, Lukas Gadai, despite the 71 flat, should be alright in the cobbled races to at least get a top 20 here and there. They can field a sprint at any race. They can field a climber in any race. Get some points. They have some cool riders in Conchi and Confroy. So, while I'm not sure if any of the riders scores more than 400 points, the overall composition of the team could elevate them out of this relegation zone that on the first glance I was inclined to put them in. But in the bigger picture, they may be higher up here. Having said that, I'm a little concerned that it now looks like Ura is a little doomed, but I don't think they're much worse than the teams that we have in this Jose Alarcon territory. Let's put Zara here and rearrange the setting a little so that we can see all of the riders. Not all of the riders, but all of the teams a little, and recheck whether we are happy with what we did overall, because Zara by Luis Leon Sanchez was the last team. So let's check all of the teams, and let's go by riders and see whether we like what we did. We have, maybe we can rearrange that a little better even. If we do it like this, and then you can see the teams that they ride for. That should be fine. Yeah, so in terms of stage races, we got Le Cuisinier and Herklotz, which are obviously the best ones. So Herklotz should be the best, and then we have Le Cuisinier, and then we have Taylor Finney, likely, Leckle Morton, Merhavi Kudus, those 5 guys, and then Hagen Dombrovski are up there, but it's really between Le Cuisinier and Herklotz and Kudus, and apart from that, I would say basically anybody can beat anybody out of those 6 guys: Morton, Finney, Haig, Dombrovski, Pogacar, Bernal. So these are the ones that you would want to avoid. And then in terms of stage racing, you have a good rider like Latour and Sivakov. Yeah, with the 81 there is quite some riders, so you could have it that a rider like Joao Almeida is like the 15th best rider in a race, that a guy like Kiho Choi is only the 15th best riders in a stage race where you don't really expect the big guys to be in. And that's why I'm a little concerned about guys that are in this 79 range, that you can really use them to score well if they don't have any other strength. And with the hill riders, we especially look at Igita and Formolo, which I compared earlier, have a pretty similar skill set. When you look at those and check how they work in terms of the hill competition, you see that until Javier Romo, there are I think 17 guys with 80 and above. And you have to expect all of them, maybe except for Hairclots, or likely except for Hairclots, that all of them will be in the Hilly Classics. So if you're only number 15 on that list, like the likes of Elie Gisbert or David Formolo, Sergio Higuita, then your team, if all the other teams here right in front of you, let's take the 81 plus guys, where you can be pretty sure that they're all right ahead of you, and you have like 9 guys that are positioned in front of you with their teams. Those teams of Higuita, Formolo, Attila Walter maybe, but I think he'll be higher up. Same for Van Sevenant and maybe Gisbert. That those teams will ride farther down in the peloton, so that they will struggle to find depth points. That's why the teams of that's why I was concerned with the teams of Rabobank and Akero, what they can do, whether they can really work their their punchers. Why I was concerned with Oxo Frisby, whether they can really work their punchers. Also in comparison to teams like direct opponents like Zero. In terms of time trials, we see the issue of of training coming in for Tom Wirtgen. He reshaped the battle for time trial supremacy after Taylor Finney is a little bit down on that. Pola, we see, is still high up there. I think Finney, Bernal, Wirtgen have the potential to be stars with their skill set. You obviously like Yuta and Amano, and Mats Wirtz. They can also hold their own. And then there is Filippo Ganna, who's also there. So watch out for those 6 guys really being able to also compete with the climbers in the time trial heavy stage races. Apart from that, it may be difficult to say how those 79 range riders can really work on the next really interesting guys. Guggenhardt, Legness, and Conchi are probably more about the stage races, and also Puma's Kemna are mostly all about the stage races that are time trial heavy, but also have this element of climbing. Let's look at the cobbles, where we surely have Pedersen as number 1 rider. We also have Lukasz Wisniewski and David Per. I hinted at their similarities. I think you can see those similarities and how they're built. Per has a little bit more energy at the end towards the sprint. Wisniewski has a little bit more of the punch. They should be fight for number 2 with Hertz. And then you have guys like Verhooydonk, Seneschal and Altur maybe. Should be alright. And Spengler. For the other things, Underberg maybe in this category. And I think after that, it's struggle time for the cobblers. They have to be lucky. That's my main concern with Evonik, that Polanc and Nylands may struggle a little to break into that mold of riders. I think Pedersen will score massive, and I think also Per, Wisniewski, and Hertz should be alright and be capable enough to score. And then we look at the sprinters, and I've hinted towards sprinters being not that strong this year. Gaviria is obviously there. Eduard Grosso is there. I'm not sure why Grosso's on like half of the wage that Gaviria is. Something for the average formula to consider. But Gaviria, in normal terms, I would have said this is the perfect win of opportunity for Moser, but I don't think they had a lot of time to build for Gaviria in the transfer season. They didn't do a lot, so we'll see. And there's definitely the opportunity for the second row riders to be there. And who I'm looking at especially is Alberto Dainese. I think Assaab has a fantastic setup for them. And looking at this makes me even want to consider to put Assaab even higher. But then again, I am a big fan of how Sickle Freak builds their teams, so probably also a little biased by that. Yeah, I think there are plenty of very similar riders looking at Phillips, Kanter, Halvorsen, Manninen. They could all be very hit and miss. Cambois almost a little under the radar now. At this point, though, I again really like the resistance stat for sprinters. If you look at the riders with 80 or plus that are in green, Manninen, Salim Cambois, Fernando Gaviria, Alberto Danese, I think those could do really well if they are in the right atmosphere. So yeah. Then of course there's a lot of these hybrid type of riders, but I think it's hard to go through them all. We could maybe go through the 25 or under riders as a last thing. Check out who we like most out of them, and see how many points they can score. And then there is indeed Andres Ardila and Santi Buitrago. This could be interesting for Mole and CEDITA. Maybe I put them both up a spot here, or up 2 spots. They could really be beneficial. There is Pitcock for Akero, who could do well. Mauro Schmid for Ura, who could get those points. Andreas Leknesund for Gazelle. Maybe I've been a little too hard on Gazelle, and they could go one more up. In fact, I think Gazelle could go one more up into this Marco Kump territory, if they could work Leknesund well. Lots of very interesting riders, but also clear gaps in who can do what. Evenepoel and Leknesund, for example, will clash a lot. Also with Tom Pitcock and Luke Plapp, Giovanni Aleotti, so many of those riders in the 24 to 25 age range. Very, very competitive there. In other terms, it's less competitive for the cobbles, for example, and cobble stage races. Vermeersch and Pitcock, obviously very well set. Inyam Girmay should be very interesting there. In terms of climbs, you see the clear gap between Ardila and then Buitrago, and Tanaka and Chaya Sambat, who I completely missed, is only 25. So very competitive at the end. Am I happy with the final list? I don't really know, but that's also up for you to discuss. So I'll leave it here. Thank you so much for listening to me again. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, let me know what you think. Goodbye.